Welcome to another edition of First and North. I'm your host, Lily Zhao from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. We have plenty to talk about on Halloween, the trade deadline, lots of games in Week 8, and of course, our standings in the NFC North. Let me bring in my esteemed panel of colleagues. We have Lou Canellis from Chicago, Dan Miller from Detroit, and of course, Jim Rich from Minneapolis. And gentlemen, it's been a busy week. It's been a busy day for all of us covering NFL teams with the trade deadline. I'll get to that in a little bit, but let's start first with these Week 8 games. And of course, we're going to start with the top team in our division, the Detroit Lions. We saw them on Monday Night Football. And Dan, it wasn't a perfectly clean game for you guys against the Raiders, but this was the first time you guys held a game on Monday night in Detroit since 2018. What was that building like? And what did you learn about this team now that you have a bye and some time to rest up?
Yeah, Lily, it was wonderful in there. It was just, the roof was coming off the place like we knew that it would. It was sold out and then some. These fans have been waiting for this. And you know what's funny? We got that game in 2018 because Matt Patricia had come in. It was kind of a big hire and came from New England, and people were excited about what he might bring. Obviously, that didn't work out. They got this game and the Kansas City game on opening night and the Green Bay game a couple of weeks ago, and then this one on Monday night because of what they've actually done, because of what they're actually building here, which in Detroit is important because it's something that's got a foundation. It's something that appears that it's got staying power. They've obviously gotten off to a good start this year. You're right. It was not pretty. They had turnovers. They didn't get in the end zone. They settled for field goals. But the important thing for Detroit, and I think the difference between this team and maybe some Lions teams that we've seen in the past, is that they found a way. The offense wasn't scoring touchdowns. The defense shut down the Raiders. They got some plays from their special teams. So, look, I think at a grand scale, it's win and get better. For the Lions, it's win. Now you got some time off to get through some of these injuries, let some guys rest up and hit the ground running a couple weeks from now when they take on the Chargers. But, look, I think they're thrilled 6-2 at the bye. They feel very good about things and moving forward. You know, obviously a lot of things in this division have broken in their direction. They still have a lot of work to do, but it was a nice victory to get, in particular coming off an ugly game against the Ravens last week.
And of course, being at 6-2, I think all of us here on the rest of the panel, we would love for our team to be even at that point, but we certainly aren't there yet. And then, of course, this week we had an interdivision battle at Lambeau Field, and Jim, your Vikings came out victorious, but there also was kind of a downer portion to it, losing your quarterback Kirk Cousins for the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. How big of an impact is that for your organization, and what was the mood like for the team after the game, knowing that Kirk was playing so well, and this is the end result for him?
Well, to steal a call from your radio announcer, it was the Vikings' dagger. Losing a guy like Cousins, who's having the best year of his career. He has been so good this season. He and Kevin O'Connell are on the same page. They lose Justin Jefferson, not a big deal. Jordan Addison steps in. He's become the go-to guy for Cousins. And a lot of this is on Kirk Cousins. Granted, Addison's a great talent, but you got to have a guy that can read a defense, that can put the ball where it needs to be. And Cousins showed he could work with Justin Jefferson. He could work with Addison. T.J. Hawkinson appears to have gotten over his case of the drops. He had 6 catches for 88 yards. K.J. Osborne had a solid game, 99 yards. So overall, the Vikings offense could have done more, but as you say, there is a very dark cloud over that victory. Usually anytime you beat the Packers, the Vikings are sky high, but after that game, they really didn't even seem to care about the win. They were more concerned about their quarterback, who is now done for the year with that torn Achilles.
And Kirk Cousins, such a class act. You know, we saw him on the sidelines cheering on his teammates after, you know, he was evaluated for, you know, at the time, the ankle injury. So just disappointing. I think Matt LaFleur, the head coach here, talked about, you know, he was wishing Kirk well after the game. But when you're talking about the Green Bay Packers as a whole, I mean, this is a team that's in such uncharted territory. You have a young quarterback in Jordan Love that has certainly regressed in the last month. They lose 24-10 to the Vikings, and everything that they've preached in terms of wanting to get better at, fast start, they did not do. Overcoming penalties, they did not do. And executing perfectly, they did not do. And of course, that all wraps up to their 4th straight loss. And this is a team searching for answers. I don't know, if you were to ask me, what can they do offensively to get this train back on the right track? I don't know. It's when you are 8 weeks into the season and the team still cannot execute. They don't know the right calls, the right routes. There's miscommunication. That's just hard to overcome, especially with a really young team. So we'll see if they do anything with the deadline and really how they approach the next week. But it's certainly not going well for us here in the great state of Wisconsin. And Lou, going off that though, I think there was a lot of optimism for you guys in Chicago. You had Tyson Bagent come in and he plays well, but then there's kind of a dud against the Chargers. Is there still a renewed faith in him that he can get the job done without Justin Fields on the field this coming Sunday?
Well, we hope so against the Saints, that's for sure, Lily. We actually appreciate that the Packers are keeping us company right now at the bottom of the NFC North. But it was a disappointment on Sunday against the Chargers. Listen, can we just keep the Bears off of Sunday Night Football? They have dropped their last 7 games on Sunday Night Football, all 7 by double digits. And it was clearly just a step up in class for the Bears, and they failed. Chargers are on a different level. Despite the fact that they were a struggling group, the Bears just were beaten from go. Los Angeles had no problem scoring on its first 5 drives. Their offensive game plan was terrific. Instead of trying to run against a pretty good run defense that the Bears feature, they dinked and dunked their way down the football field with one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, in Justin Herbert, who completed his first 15 passes, guys. And offensively, Bears never got their running game going against the Las Vegas Raiders. That running game was terrific with Deontay Foreman. It was just non-existent against the Chargers and Khalil Mack. They tried to throw the football downfield with Tyson Bagent, but we saw that Bagent was no longer playing in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, in front of 5,000 folks, but instead he was playing on football's biggest stage, Sunday Night Football, during the regular season against the Chargers defense with Khalil Mack staring at him on the other side of the line, ready to go after him. Couple times did, and Bagent made a couple of rookie mistakes. He didn't play all that poorly, but he did throw 2 picks, could have had a third there in the second half, and he just wasn't comfortable, and it's understanding. His second NFL game, third NFL game, second NFL start, made a couple of mistakes out there, and it didn't help that his defense did him no favors, and that right out of the gate, the Bears were down 14-0, so you had a rookie quarterback, an undrafted free agent out of Division II, on the road, his first start in the NFL away from home, and he's now playing catch-up ball against Khalil Mack and the Chargers. Put him in a tough position, never a game, and hopefully things change because Justin Fields isn't ready yet. Coach Matt Eberflus told the media yesterday that he's progressing, but he's not ready to grip the football just yet. So now Tyson Bagent gets to experience Bourbon Street for the first time and the Superdome, or whatever they call it now in New Orleans, which frankly can be a loud joint. I know you know that, Dan. When the Saints are winning and defensively they are playing well right now under Dennis Allen, that could be a difficult place to play for a rookie quarterback.
Most certainly. And then when Lou, I'll kind of stick with you, though, because the day that we're talking right now, it's the trade deadline. Everyone else above me with you guys and your teams have made some sort of trade. The Packers, as of right now, have stayed put. Nothing new out of Green Bay just yet. But Lou, you guys bring in a guy named Montez Sweat, give up a a second-round pick. When you saw that Chase Young was going to the Niners for a second-round pick, is that kind of like, oh my gosh, or does that not matter? And of course, how much does Sweat help you guys? Because this pass rush for the Bears has been abysmal this year.
All right, let's start with question 2, Lily. He helps immensely. I mean, this pass rush is awful. It's the worst in the NFL, let's be honest. Bears have 10 quarterback sacks. The second worst in the NFL when it comes to getting to the quarterback, 7-8 teams with 15 quarterback sacks. And this is coming off of last season's NFL worst, 20 quarterback sacks. This team hasn't been able to attack the quarterback in 2 seasons. So they absolutely needed someone that had the talent of a Montez Sweat that could put his ears back and go after the quarterback. Did they overpay for him? I guess we'll find out. We found out, unfortunately, the hard way in Chicago that they overpaid for Chase Claypool. And now Montez Sweat will cost them 32 to 35, picks 32 to 35, 33 to 35, excuse me. And if you listen to those in the know, Washington was not allowing teams they were talking to about a potential trade. Washington was not allowing those teams to talk to a Montez Sweat, or a Chase Young's agent. By the way, both represented by Clutch Sports. So now where does that put the Bears? Have they basically given away a pick that will fall between 33 and 35 for a rental player? Let's hope not.
And then, of course, we talk about Montez Sweat, like you mentioned, that draft capital, whatever you guys get for them, helping out this Bears team. But then that was a big need that you guys fulfilled in Chicago. And, of course, the Vikings making a big move without Kirk Cousins. They talked about adding a quarterback to their room. And, Jim, they do so in Josh Dobbs, coming from the Cardinals, who started every game this year for an injured Kyler Murray. You guys make that trade. Then you also ship off guard Ezra Cleveland to the Jaguars. So what do you think of that move? And does Dobbs move the needle in the quarterback room for you guys, knowing that Jaron Hall will get the start on Sunday?
Well, he may not get the start. On Sirius XM radio just in the last hour, Kevin O'Connell was quoted as saying that Dobbs could start as early as Sunday. So they'll get their hands on him and try to figure out just how quickly he can assimilate into the Vikings system. And he may be your starter against Atlanta. We'll have to see how that goes. But I think this is the best move the Vikings could make in a terrible situation. They didn't want to give away the fortune like the Bears may have done to acquire some defensive pressure help. They only gave away a 6th-round pick. They get a 7th back. And then by trading Ezra Cleveland to Jacksonville, they got their 6th-round pick. So basically, they got this quarterback for absolutely nothing. And yesterday, Kevin O'Connell was talking to reporters, and he said, if you guys could see my cell phone, you wouldn't believe some of the names that have crossed, the deals and offers that we were getting. But he said the most important thing was, yes, we have to stay competitive this season, but we can't mortgage our future. And with Kirk Cousins already heading to free agency since he was unsigned, the Vikings are looking at this draft more than likely to draft a quarterback of the future. So they weren't willing, like they did when Teddy Bridgewater went down, to ship a number 1 for Sam Bradford. They weren't interested in doing that. They wanted to try someone that they can work with. O'Connell, as everybody knows, is very good with young quarterbacks and teaching them and putting them in positions where they don't struggle. So I think for Viking fans, they have to be pretty pleased. They're not doing cartwheels. They're not going like, wow, this is the greatest acquisition ever. But you can see something here that if this team keeps progressing, he could be a piece from here on out to the finish. Plus, you have Mullins coming back off of IR next week. Maybe he'll be ready to go. Or Jaron Hall, if he does get the start, he rips it up, he keeps the job. So I think they are happy with having a bunch of options.
And then, Jim, kind of staying with you, though, hopefully there's no more Tom Brady potential rumors that we were seeing about coming to the North. We don't want that. But, Jim, is there still a belief in the Vikings organization?
He's got relatives here. Up north of here.
That's
He's
true.
got relatives. He used to spend the summer here as a kid. He would have loved it here. It would have been great to have him. But I think for Brady to actually be interested, it'd have to be a clear-cut favorite to get to the Super Bowl. He doesn't want to just push the team to the playoffs. He wants a clear-cut path to the Super Bowl. And I don't think this Vikings team is built and has a path like that in front of them.
Well, then going off that, though, Jim, just with Dan's team doing so well in the division, is there still a belief, though, even without Kirk Cousins, that you guys can remain competitive for that division title, just being 2 games down right now? Is there a belief this team can still keep up with the Lions, per se?
Well, yeah, there's a belief here because the Lions are a young team trying to prove themselves, Dan. Like you said, they're taking steps. They're not a superstar team yet. They're not a reigning champion where they have all that experience. This is all a new world for them, Dan. So I'm assuming that, there's a little doubt as they continue to pile up the wins. That Raiders game could have flipped and went the wrong way, but they got it done. And so the Vikings, with that division crown a year ago, have some confidence in their building. The players all believe in Brian Flores and this defense all of a sudden, and O'Connell has done a nice job with the offense. So, yeah, I think they're cautiously optimistic because we still have the 2 games with the Lions at the end of the season. So as long as the Vikings stay within striking distance, why not aim for the crown?
I'm looking forward to those two games. And just, Dan, for your perspective here, this is a team that's riding high. You talked about just their ability to win in prime time, and now that they are also active at the trade deadline, bringing in Donovan Peoples-Jones, a hometown kid. What do you think of the move, and does he, add more to that receivers room that you guys have?
Yeah, I think he does, and I think he adds some depth. And they've had injuries, up and down the roster early in this season, and they've been able to weather most of them. I think that's why this bye comes at a good time, because it will allow them to perhaps get some guys back, like a Jonah Jackson on the offensive line, Frank Ragnow on the offensive line, David Montgomery, the running back. So they're hoping when they get back against the Chargers, they're going to be back closer to full strength than what they were going into that game against the Raiders. Look, to Jim's point, until you've done it, you haven't done it. And everybody in that Lions locker room would tell you, yeah, we're confident. We believe we're a good team. But they'd also tell you this team hasn't accomplished anything yet. They're 6-2. It's a great start. But you got to finish. You've got to prove yourself. These other teams are looking at it. Look, we're at the top right now. You guys have won division titles. You guys have been to the playoffs. Lions haven't done that in a while, so they're trying to go where other teams have gone. And until you do it, you really haven't done it. And I will say this, it's heartbreaking to see what happens to Kirk Cousins, because Minnesota was coming on. And there were a lot of Lions fans that were rooting for Green Bay in that game on Sunday. Packers just don't look like they have much life to them right now. Minnesota looked like they had a lot, and that really changes things within the division. Look, I think we're all adults here. We can say this. It's going to be tough for the Vikings to keep it going, but there's a lot of talent on that team, and that team's not going to give up, and I think you're going to get their best effort the rest of the way. What I like, just, Lou, about what you guys did, look, did you give up some significant capital? Yes. Did you put yourself in possibly a precarious position because this guy's got a lot of leverage now when it comes to negotiating a contract? Yes. But here's the thing. You got a guy that's already proven he can play in the NFL in Montez Sweat. And that's the nice thing you like about that. He's already proven he can get after quarterbacks. The guy you take at 32, 33, 34, 35, you're projecting him to maybe be able to play in this league. So that's why I kind of like what Chicago did. And you guys have cap room through the roof at the end of this season. So if you're rolling the dice a little bit, maybe that's a way to get a heck of a player. And I like the deal that you made. As far as what the Lions did, look, there were a lot of people that were hoping they would come out of there with a pass rusher. I haven't seen that to date. Peoples-Jones from Michigan, from Detroit, he is a guy that obviously adds a little bit of depth. He's got some punt return ability. And if they need to work him in for some snaps, they might be able to do that. Amon-Ra St. Brown was sick going into last night's game, so I think that just shows you're a little bit vulnerable in some spots. They went to get some depth. The guy's played in this league, played a lot of snaps, played a lot of games, doesn't have overwhelming statistics, obviously, but I think they feel good about adding somebody to the roster that's got some skins on the wall, that has played a little bit, and they can put him out there and feel confident that he's not going to be overwhelmed by what it is. They've got Antoine Green playing out there right now at times, who's a rookie. They like him a lot, but he just doesn't have the experience that a Donovan Peoples-Jones does.
Hey, if I can, Lily, let me jump in for a second, because when you asked me about the trade, I just gave you the basics. I'm here to tell you, I love the trade coming off of what Dan just said. This team needed someone, a warlord, to get after the quarterback. They went out, they spent $10.5 million on a one-year deal to bring in Yannick Ngakoue. He hasn't touched the quarterback in 3 games. When you can't get to the quarterback, you put your defense in an awful position, and we have seen it for too long. This franchise hasn't won consecutive games since the end of the 21 season. Montez Sweat, by himself, with 6.5 sacks this season, has more sacks than all of the Bears' defensive ends put together. It was a deal that needed to happen, and I understand there are a number of fans in this town who are worried that the Bears gave up too much in draft capital. That's because of what happened with Chase Claypool. Let's be honest here. People are thinking, oh man, not this again. We're going to blow it like we did with Claypool. Or we gave away Roquan Smith, who's an all-pro now, for a pick in the 50s. So that's where that concern is coming from. And financially, Dan Miller, you're right. They have over $100 million in cap room for next season. I'd rather spend a lot of that money on a proven commodity, all right, that's going to be from, 33 to 35 in the draft if you were to spend that kind of draft capital on a defensive end. I'd rather spend it on a Sweat than go out there and get a kid and roll the dice, and hopefully it works with a second rounder.
And another key, Lou, you get to see him play in your system this year. Your coaches, will get to see him play in a Bears uniform versus just assuming that some guy you get on the free agent market will fit into your system. So I think that's another plus in this deal for Chicago as well.
And Lily, you asked about the comparison between he and Chase Young. Listen, Chase Young is younger, but he's coming off a real significant knee injury. He's just back, all right? Played the last 3 games last season, has played well this season, but he's another bad injury from being, in serious trouble. So I would rather spend the extra draft capital, spend a second instead of a third like San Francisco got away with, on a Sweat instead of Young.
Yeah, everyone making moves in the NFC North. Vikings at a quarterback. You guys in Chicago get some more help on the pass rusher front. And of course, Dan, you guys already add to a talented roster. I just learned now that the Green Bay Packers, though, have finally made a move. They traded their cornerback Rasul Douglas over to the Buffalo Bills. Not sure on the compensation part of that yet, but pretty surprising in my opinion because Rasul is one of the leaders in the defensive room. Again, this is such a young team, and he talked about it after the game and the loss to the Vikings, saying, I need to find a better way to lead my guys because clearly what we're doing is not working. And now he gets shipped off to Buffalo, wondering what the Packers do get in return, but kind of surprised with that move. So there is something happening in Green Bay, and we'll, of course, follow up with it. So that's an interesting move. But, guys, I want to shift gears now to Week 9 and a couple big games that we do have. And let's start with you, Jim, and the Vikings. You guys are in Atlanta. It's kind of the quarterback controversy, quarterback game of, you know, the shuffling of who's going to play and who's going to play well, right?
Exactly, and really the Vikings I don't think are going to focus a lot on Atlanta. I think they're going to look internally to themselves and to try to figure this out and settle the room down and decide if Jaren Hall will be ready or if Dobbs can actually get himself up to speed quick enough to get this team rolling. The problem is whoever takes over at quarterback for the Vikings will have an abysmal running attack. The Vikings just have not been able to figure out how to put together a consistent run game this season. Alexander Mattison was supposed to be the guy. He didn't do it. So they had to go out and trade for Cam Akers. Now, Akers has flashed. We saw a little bit against Green Bay. The Vikings finally got their first rushing touchdown of the year. That only took 2 months to get done. But now they have to really step up and help out whoever is the starting quarterback because defenses are not buying the running game. The RPOs, we saw linebackers last week not even bite on Cousins faking a handoff. They're like, that's no problem. We're going after the quarterback or I'm sitting on my receiver. So that's the biggest thing I think for the Vikings. They're going to concentrate on themselves, and obviously Flores will work on whatever the Falcons throw at him. But I think that offense has got to really come together and rally around who's ever under center, because before it was Cousins leading the offense. Now it's got to be the rest of the offense leading that quarterback as he gets his feet wet.
And the Vikings defense certainly will be a tall task as well. Jim, I love it, and I'm picking the Vikings in that one. Lou, I do want to ask you, though, about your game against the Saints. And, again, this is a Derek Carr team that finally got some points on the board against the Colts. They get a win. Tyson Bagent, of course, is going to start this one in New Orleans. Quick prediction for you there.
I'll tell you what, the Saints are feeling good about themselves. 4-4, tied with Atlanta right now at the top of the NFC South, but I believe that Montez Sweat could play a factor in this game on Sunday. You're telling him, listen, you're going to line up at the end. The guy is lined up in a 4-3. He's lined up in a 3-4. This Bears defense is a 4-3. Go after the quarterback. I actually think that with Sweat on one side and Ngakoue on the other, his play may pick up against New Orleans. I think the Bears could have success defensively. Their run defense has been strong all season long. My biggest worry is Tyson Bagent and how he handles New Orleans defense that is playing right now and that New Orleans crowd in the Dome that can get loud. It's only his third NFL start. If he handles it well, doesn't give up the football like he did on Sunday night and plays more like he did against the Vegas Raiders a couple of weeks ago, the Bears have a shot. It's going to be tough on the road with the rookie quarterback, but I think they're in this game now because of the Sweat move.
I agree with you there, but I think Packers fans probably don't want the Bears to reach 3 wins before they do. Moving on, Dan, to your Lions. It's a bye week, sitting pretty at the top of the NFC North at 6-2. I know health is the most important thing, but what else are you looking for out of this team on their bye week?
Yeah, no doubt. I think number one, you said it, is health. Just try to get some guys back. Number two, keep working on that defense. Look, they had 6 sacks against the Raiders. All came in the second half. All came when the Raiders basically had to throw the ball and the Lions could sell out. They got some work to do on that pass rush to find a way to be a little more consistent getting after the quarterback in the second half. Bulk of their sacks this year have come in 3 games. Other than that, they've been hard to come by. There's a lot going right with this team right now. Getting healthy offensively is a big key, and then defensively continue to work the scheme and try to get some guys to win up front outside of just Aiden Hutchinson. So that's the big focus, but more than anything, give the guys some time, then get ready for the Chargers.
And that'll be a really fun game with the amount of points. I know. You put your feet up, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Trust me. You guys go play a game. I'm going to be drinking a beer watching you because this is our week off. I'm going to have a good time just watching you guys do some labor. But believe me, I'll be kicked back on the couch.
Well, the Packers hopefully don't want to be back on the couch in January, but I think that's probably where they're going to be. Taking on the Rams at home inside Lambeau Field, and this is going to be a big prove-it game for the Green Bay Packers. They don't want to go to another 5-game slide like they had last year, and I think this is a big prove-it game for Matt LaFleur, the coaching staff. Again, they've preached the things that they want to improve on, but week after week after week, it's Groundhog Day. We haven't seen any improvement. So if they lose to a backup of Matthew Stafford, who likely will not play because of that UCL sprain in his thumb, it's going to be kind of D-Day here in Green Bay as to what they're going to do. Are they just going to sell out and say, we'll take the top 5 pick next year? Or are they going to make some moves to see if they can move up and win a couple more games down the stretch? We'll see. I think it's going to be another big test for Green Bay against the Rams because things have not been looking so good here in Wisconsin. All right, guys, another fabulous week talking football with you lovely folks, and we'll see how our teams do. But Lions and Dan, enjoy the bye week, and Lou, we'll see if our teams can get to 3 wins. And Jim, good luck with the quarterback situation for you guys, and wishing Kirk Cousins well. We'll have much more next week on First and North. We'll see you then.